Okay, today we are going to be discussing how to clean Frogwater Riverkeeper reel. This is a very popular custom float reel developed by a gentleman by the name of Rob Marquette in Southern Ontario. He actually makes 3 reels. One is called the Little Frog. The other is called, this reel is the Frogwater, and then he's got a Bullfrog, which basically we're talking a 4.5 inch diameter compared to a 4.875 inch diameter, which is this Frogwater. And the Bullfrog, which is a bigger version of this, is a 5.25 inch diameter. The purpose of this video today is to look at how do we clean this reel without damaging the bearings, and what does Rob recommend in terms of the materials. So you see here in preparation, I've got some 3-in-1 oil, I've got some canola oil, and I've got a slot or flat screwdriver bit and a small Phillips screwdriver bit and a toothpick. So to start, we need to remove the plate cover, just like so. One thing that I do recommend when cleaning any reel is that you put yourself out a nice piece of white paper towel or cloth. Make sure that there's not a lot of action going on. The last thing you want to do is drop this reel. As you know, they're very sensitive, and any dent can permanent this particular, or any float reel for that matter. So I just take this off. We can use this toothpick so not to damage any of the metal. Take that off, and what you have is a slot screwdriver or a slot screw. It's still not going to come apart, so you don't have to worry about anything falling off. That happens when this comes up. I'm just going to change out this, and let's remove this gently. So firmly hold down and remove the screw. Take the screw off. Now this is the part that's very important. Okay, a lot of people will have the clicker on, and this is very important. Be sure to remove or place the clicker on the off position so your spool is free spinning and the clicker is not engaged. What's important about that is if that clicker was engaged and you tried taking this off, you could potentially bend the disc inside, which would create resistance against the clicker and require some custom rework. So again, remember, please make sure that the clicker is turned off, and we'll gently pull the spool off. Okay, I like to place this off to the side, making sure there's no action so it doesn't fall off. My first order of business is to take a piece of paper towel and gently remove any residue, particularly any place along this back plate and in this corner area here where grit often will collect, particularly on the bottom side of the reel here. I like to clean every bit of this reel off thoroughly, making sure to get any piece of grit out. Now, in terms of this particular unit here, the Frogwater, I like to put, personally, I forgot to mention this, this is Park Tool. I used to cycle a lot. This was a top grease that we used. I like to put a little bit of grease just just a little bit here, and you can see that in here, and making sure not to put too much here. Too much grease means you're going to start collecting grit, which eventually gets caught up into your reel. So I'm happy with the back plate. There's no grit anywhere along the outer edge, the lower edge. It's all pretty much cleaned off. Now I'm going to work around to the actual spool itself. So the spool itself has inside, there is a little clip in here that keeps the bearing in place on this side. There's also a bearing on this side. This is the disc that actually holds the reel when the clicker is engaged. It creates resistance with a little bearing that connects into these holes, and that creates the resistance for the reel to stop spinning. I would definitely be cleaning out all of this gently. You can use soap and water if you want. I just often just use my own spit and get rid of the grit off here, here, and here. Once you've cleaned that out, you're in a good shape. What we can do now is we're going to use the, Rob suggested this 3-in-1 oil. A note is that you should really not be dipping these reels in the water. The pictures are certainly cool when you have a shot of the reel with the fish in the water, but it is not recommended that you dunk this reel, in particular these bearings, in the water. There is only a 1-year warranty on the bearing, and as such, when you do that, you're really hurting the life of your bearing. There are guys that have been reporting having their bearings for up to 9 years and working perfectly, and that's just using these simple tricks here. So the main thing here is just putting in 1 drop of bearing grease. Let's try that again. Just put 1 little drop in here, right on the bearing. 1, and put that on the other side. 1 little drop. Done. Note that if you put too much in, you're going to have bearing rumble, and that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the bearing. It will continue to spin smoothly. It will operate smoothly. The only issue is that if you're putting too much oil in here, it's going to create a little bit of pressure with the bearings and create a rumbling noise. Again, it's not an issue. It will not prevent any degradation in the reel spin whatsoever. It's just a sound. If you don't want to hear that, you're concerned about it, it bugs you, then you may want to just send this reel back to Rob. It's about $100 to get this reel serviced and have it done directly from him, if you need that. Now, one other little piece here, I don't know if you can see, if you look in there, there is a little spline, I believe is what it's called, that's offset right now. And so to get that reel back on, if you place the reel, you'll notice that it won't go down any further. So what we do is take this toothpick and gently filter that, get it on so that you have the spline centered properly, and then we're going to gently let her go down, and that's it. So that reel now has been cleaned on the inside. We've added a little bit of grease, a little bit of 3-in-1 oil to each side of the bearing, and now it's just a matter of putting it back together. And you should be able to firmly tighten this without any impact to the reel. That's what that spline was for. So I've just cranked that pretty solidly. And one thing I do like about the Riverkeeper reels is I really do appreciate this. I've had several other reels where We've got just a pin on the outside. It comes off, your reel flies in the water, and that's the end of your day of fishing. This at least ensures that that never happens, and you've always got that main screw secured. One little tip here is try not to crank the first or second screw on this plate down too firmly at the beginning. Just put them all on gently. The reason is there is a little movement in this center plate, and if you crank it down too much, the screws don't fit nicely into these. I believe they're called beveled holes. So now I can start to crank gently. See, it's just shifted a little bit, so it's fitting nicely with that screw again. And now I'm going to crank that down a little bit. I'm not going to go overly crazy, not even a quarter turn, just until I feel a little bit of resistance from each one. And that's it. And that's the reel. Give it a spin. Not hearing too much rumbling. Sounds perfectly normal, spinning beautifully. That's your frogwater reel by Riverkeeper Reels, and hope this was somewhat helpful. I know that when I take reels apart for the first time, I'm always afraid there's going to be a spring that bounces out, and as long as you ensure that you got that clicker on the off position when you're taking this reel apart, that's the biggest concern. If you make sure you've got that off, pretty much everything is straightforward. One more thing I forgot to mention. Interesting. There have been people that use this 3-in-1 oil on these handles. This handle material has been known to wear a little more when you're using a 3-in-1 or a regular oil. Now, what Rob recommends is you use a household oil like canola or mazola, and you just dip that in on top of each of these part areas here. Give it a spin, and that seems to work the best for these handles. Give it a go, see what you think. Happy to hear your comments, or if you have any questions, please feel free to email me or Rob, and hopefully we'll see you out on the water sometime. Thanks again.